We'll pay you nothing." My mother said it with such casual cruelty that for a moment I thought I'd misheard her. But then I looked at my daughter Lily's face, 12 years old, standing in my mother's pristine kitchen with her hands still stained with dirt from the garden she'd spent 6 weeks tending, and I saw her eyes fill with tears she was desperately trying to hold back. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I kept my voice steady, even though rage was already building in my chest. "You promised her $20 a day. She's been here every single day after school, all summer break." "I promised her experience," my mother interrupted, examining her manicured nails like this conversation bored her. "Real-world experience. That's worth far more than money at her age, don't you think?" 6 weeks. My daughter had worked 6 weeks for this woman, my own mother. And now she was standing there, in her designer pantsuit, fresh from her position as senior HR director at one of the city's largest corporations, telling my child that labor deserves no compensation. "You specifically said $20 per day," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have your texts. You wrote it out. Lily can help with the garden this summer. $20 a day, 5 days a week." My mother waved her hand dismissively. That was before I realized how much supervision she needed, how many mistakes she made. Honestly, Rachel, she's cost me more in damaged plants than she's contributed. If anything, she should be paying me. I watched my daughter's shoulders shake. She'd been so proud of this job. She'd woken up early every day without being asked, made herself breakfast, or rode her bike the 2 miles to my mother's house. She'd come home exhausted, with dirt under her nails, and stories about the roses she was helping to cultivate, the vegetable garden she was learning to tend. She'd been planning what to do with her earnings, save half, she'd told me, and use the rest to buy art supplies. "Lily, go wait in the car," I said quietly. "But Mom—" "Now." She left, and I heard the front door close behind her. I turned back to my mother, who was already loading her dishwasher like this was just another Tuesday. $600, I said. "That's what you owe her. 6 weeks, 5 days a week, $20 per day." "I'm not paying her a cent." My mother turned to face me, and there was something almost gleeful in her expression. "And if you push this, I'll make sure everyone knows what an entitled little brat you're raising. Already expecting handouts. No work ethic. Should I call your father? See what he thinks about his granddaughter demanding money from family?" That's when I understood. This wasn't about the garden. This wasn't about the money. This was about power. My mother had always needed to be in control, had always needed to remind everyone of their place in her carefully constructed hierarchy. And apparently, my 12-year-old daughter needed to learn hers. "You know what?" I picked up my purse, keeping my voice dangerously calm. "You're right. This is a valuable lesson for Lily. Just not the one you think." I walked out before she could respond. Lily was in the passenger seat, crying silently, staring out the window. "I'm sorry, baby," I said, starting the car. I'm so sorry. I worked so hard," she whispered. "I did everything she asked. I even stayed late that day when Mrs. Patterson came over because Grandma wanted the garden to look perfect for her friend. I missed Emma's birthday party for that." Something cracked inside my chest. My daughter had sacrificed her summer, her time with friends, her childhood, because she'd believed in an agreement with someone who should have protected her, who should have been teaching her about integrity and fairness and the value of her own labor. Instead, my mother had taught her that people in power can cheat you, can exploit you, can look you in the eye and deny you what you've earned simply because they can. "Mom?" Lily's voice was small. "Why would Grandma do that?" I didn't have an answer she could understand. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that some people view kindness as weakness? That your own grandmother sees you not as a person to nurture, but as a resource to exploit? But as I drove home, my hands tight on the steering wheel, I made myself a promise. My mother wanted to teach my daughter about the real world? Fine. She was about to get a very thorough education herself. My mother, Patricia Donovan, had spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder at Meridian Industries, one of the city's most prominent manufacturing companies. She'd started as a junior HR assistant and worked her way up to senior director of human resources, a position she wielded like a scepter. People were terrified of her. She'd built her reputation on being firm but fair, though from what I'd seen throughout my childhood, the fairness was negotiable. The garden project had started innocently enough, or so I'd thought. Memorial Day weekend, at a family barbecue, my mother had complained about her landscaping service going out of business. She'd looked at Lily, who'd been talking about wanting to earn money for a new art tablet, and suggested the arrangement. It would be good for her, my mother had said, in that tone she used when she was pretending to be generous. Learn about responsibility, hard work. I'll pay her $20 a day. That's more than fair for a beginner. My father had nodded approval. My sister Jennifer had called it a great opportunity. Even my husband Mike had thought it sounded reasonable. What 12-year-old wouldn't want a summer job that paid well and taught real skills? I'd been hesitant. I knew my mother, knew how she operated. But Lily had been so excited, and I'd wanted to believe that my mother could be different with her granddaughter, that maybe 3 generations would soften some of those sharp edges. I'd been wrong. The first week had gone fine. Lily came home tired but happy, telling us about the flower beds she was weeding, the mulch she was spreading. My mother had even called to say Lily was doing adequately, which from her was practically a glowing review. Week 2, the comments started. She's a bit slow. She doesn't listen well. I had to redo some of her work. But still no indication that payment was in question. By week 3, I'd noticed Lily was quieter. She still went to work every day, but the excitement had dimmed. When I asked about it, she said Grandma was just very particular about how things should be done. Week 4, I'd stopped by to drop off some documents my mother needed for a family trust matter. I'd found Lily on her hands and knees in the hot sun, replanting an entire row of hostas because my mother had decided they looked better 8 inches to the left. My mother had been sitting on her covered porch with iced tea, checking her phone. "Mom, she needs water," I'd said. "It's 95 degrees out here." "She's fine. Character building." I'd given Lily water from my car, watched her drink it desperately, and told myself I was overreacting. She'd chosen to do this. She was learning valuable lessons. This was just temporary. Week 5, Lily had come home with blisters on her hands. She'd spent 7 hours pulling up old railroad ties from a flower bed, working that had been explicitly outside the original job description. When I'd texted my mother, she'd responded, "She wanted to help. I didn't force her." But I'd seen the pattern. My mother was testing boundaries, seeing how much she could push, how much free labor she could extract from a 12-year-old who'd been raised to respect her elders and honor her commitments. And I'd let it happen. Because confronting my mother meant war, and I'd spent my whole life trying to avoid that war. Now, driving home from that final confrontation, I realized my avoidance had cost my daughter something irreplaceable. Her first real understanding that the world could be fair, that hard work would be rewarded, that the people who should protect you actually would. That night, after Lily had cried herself to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and started digging. If my mother wanted to play games, I needed to understand the full playing field. What I found made my blood run cold. It started with a simple Google search. Patricia Donovan, Meridian Industries. The first few results were what I expected. Professional profiles, mentions in company newsletters, a local business journal article about women breaking the glass ceiling from 2019. But then I found the forums, anonymous workplace review sites, Glassdoor, Reddit threads, and they were all telling variations of the same story. HR director promises overtime pay, then finds loopholes to deny it. Told me I'd be promoted after 6-month trial period. Month 7, she hired an external candidate and said I misunderstood the conversation. Internship program is a scam. They work students 50-plus hours, promise college credit and stipends, then claim budget cuts. Every single year. I spent hours reading. The pattern was unmistakable. My mother had turned wage theft into an art form. She operated in gray areas, using verbal promises and selective memory. She targeted people with less power, young employees, interns, contractors who needed the reference more than they needed the money. And she'd gotten away with it for years. I found a particularly detailed Reddit post from 3 months ago, written by someone with the username Meridian Intern Summer 2024. 6 of us in the internship program. All promised $2,000 stipend plus credit. We worked our asses off. Nights, weekends, everything. Last week of the program, HR director calls us in one by one, says the funding didn't come through, but we'll get excellent references and we should be grateful for the experience. When we pushed back, she threatened to call our universities and say we'd been unprofessional. We were terrified. We had nothing in writing except the original offer letter, which mentioned potential stipend. She'd worded it perfectly. We all walked away with nothing. $12,000. My mother had stolen $12,000 from college students who'd worked an entire summer for her company. The comments below were full of similar stories. Former employees, contractors, people who'd been promised bonuses or reimbursements or commissions, only to be told there had been a miscommunication or a budget revision, or that they hadn't met the criteria. My mother hadn't just cheated my daughter. She'd built an entire career on cheating people. I was staring at my laptop screen, feeling sick, when Mike came downstairs. "You're still up?" Mike. "Oh, look at this." I turned the laptop toward him. "This is what she does. This is who she is." He read for a few minutes, his expression darkening. Jesus. "Rachel, some of these posts are brutal. How has she not been reported? She's too careful. Everything's verbal or worded ambiguously. She targets people who can't fight back. Kids, immigrants, people who need her references. They're scared of her. What are you going to do?" I looked up at him. "I'm going to make sure she can't do this anymore." "How?" There was a point where I almost didn't tell this story at all. My own mother said no one would listen, that I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers telling stories like this. But sitting here now, I know stories like this matter. Some pain deserves to be heard, and some people deserve to be stopped. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I'll figure it out." The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the city library. I needed paper trails, documentation. If my mother had been doing this for years, there had to be official complaints somewhere. The librarian helped me access local news archives and court records. What I found was both disappointing and illuminating. 3 small claims court cases filed against Meridian Industries over the past 8 years, all settled quietly out of court with NDAs. My mother's name wasn't mentioned directly, but the complaints all referenced the HR department and verbal commitments not honored. I made copies of everything. Then I did something that felt dangerous. I created an anonymous email account and reached out to Meridian Interns Summer 2024. "I saw your Reddit post. I'm dealing with a similar situation involving Patricia Donovan. Would you be willing to talk?" The response came within an hour. "Are you serious? Do you have protection? She's vicious when challenged. I'm her daughter. She just did the same thing to my 12-year-old. There was a long pause. Then, "Oh my God. Yes. Let's talk." Her name was Emma Rodriguez, 20 years old, junior at State University, studying business administration. We met at a coffee shop across town, far from anywhere my mother might frequent. Emma was smaller than I'd pictured, with nervous hands and eyes that kept darting to the door. She'd brought a friend, a young man named David, who'd also been part of the internship program. "I didn't think anyone would believe us," Emma said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. 6 of us complained. We even talked about going public. But she called each of us individually and said if we made noise, she'd personally ensure we never got hired anywhere in this industry. She has connections everywhere. References matter. We couldn't risk it. "Tell me everything," I said. They did. The story was worse than the Reddit post suggested. The interns had been promised not just stipends, but also mentorship, real project experience, and strong recommendations. Instead, they'd been used as free labor for grunt work, filing, data entry, tasks that had nothing to do with their learning goals. When they'd completed the program and asked about the stipend, my mother had presented them with revised offer letters that said unpaid, where the original had said $2,000. "But we all had the originals," David said. "We compared them." She'd literally sent us fake revised copies and claimed those were what we'd signed. "Document forgery," I said quietly. "We couldn't prove it." She said we'd misremembered, said we were young and confused about professional norms, made us feel like idiots. Emma's voice dropped. The worst part? 2 people from our program desperately needed that money. One was sending it home to help her family. Another was using it for rent. They'd budgeted around it. When they didn't get paid, they had to drop out next semester. Get jobs instead. She started crying. David put his arm around her. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't just about $600 anymore. This was about a pattern of cruelty, of calculated exploitation of vulnerable people. My mother had turned other people's hope and trust into her own game. "I want to help you," I said, "and I need your help too." "How?" Emma looked at me with something between fear and desperate hope. "My mother is untouchable at Meridian because she spent 30 years building political capital. But she's made one critical mistake. She's underestimated the people she's hurt. She thinks you're all too scared or too powerless to fight back. She thinks I won't go against my own mother. She's wrong on both counts." I pulled out my folder of research. I have documentation of complaints. I have witness testimonies from anonymous forums. And I have something else. My mother is up for a major promotion in 2 months. Vice President of Human Resources. It's been announced internally, but not publicly yet. David's eyes widened. If someone reported all this to the company board before the promotion. Exactly. Well, but it can't be anonymous. It needs to be credible, detailed, and public enough that they can't just bury it. "They'll destroy us," Emma whispered. "Our careers. Not if we're careful. Not if we do this right. I've been thinking about this all night." I pulled out my laptop. "We don't go to the company. We go to the Department of Labor. We file official wage theft complaints. Everyone she's cheated. All at once. A pattern claim. With names, dates, and documentation. The DOL doesn't care about corporate politics. They care about labor law violations." "Will it work?" David asked. "It should. But there's more. We need public pressure too. I've been looking into employment law advocates, journalists who cover labor issues. If we can get this story told properly, with real people attached to it, it becomes harder to ignore." Emma looked terrified. "My parents will freak out. They're immigrants. They're scared of making waves. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with," I said gently. "But Emma, she's going to keep doing this. Next summer, there will be 6 more interns, 6 more kids she cheats, and it won't stop unless someone stops her." We talked for 2 more hours. By the end, I had commitments from 4 of the 6 interns to file DOL complaints. Emma agreed to write a detailed account of what happened. David knew 2 people from previous year's programs who might be willing to come forward. It was a start. But I needed something more. Something that would make this personal. something that would make my mother understand she couldn't just abuse her power without consequences. And then I remembered. She was hosting her annual charity garden party in 3 weeks, a big event she threw every year, inviting colleagues, friends, city council members. She used it to showcase her hospitality, her beautiful garden, her generous spirit. The garden my daughter had spent 6 weeks perfecting. "Tell me about your best friend's mom," I said to Emma suddenly, "the one you mentioned, who works at the local news station." The morning of my mother's garden party, I woke up at 5 a.m. with my heart pounding. Mike rolled over and looked at me. "You sure about this?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Lily was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table. She'd barely spoken to me about what we were planning. I told her some of it, that Grandma had hurt other people too, that we were trying to help them, but not everything. She was 12. She didn't need to carry the weight of what was about to happen. "Is today the day?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, baby. Today's the day." "What's going to happen?" "I don't know exactly. But whatever happens, I need you to know. What Grandma did to you was wrong, and you didn't deserve it. None of those people she hurt deserved it." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I just wanted to earn the money. I worked really hard. I know you did. And that matters. Your work mattered, even if she couldn't see it." At 2 p.m., my mother's garden party was in full swing. I arrived fashionably late, with Mike and Lily. My mother's eyebrows rose when she saw us. I hadn't RSVP'd, but she was too proud to make a scene in front of her guests. "Rachel, how unexpected." "Wouldn't miss it, Mom. Especially since Lily put so much work into this garden." My mother's smile tightened. "Yes. Well, she learned valuable lessons." "She certainly did." I circulated through the party, smiling, chatting, watching. At 3 p.m., right on schedule, Emma Rodriguez arrived. She wasn't alone. She'd brought 3 other former interns, all dressed professionally, all carrying folders. My mother noticed immediately. I saw her stiffen, saw her eyes narrow. But before she could intercept them, I stepped up to her guests, specifically to Harold Morrison, CEO of Meridian Industries, and Margaret Chen, head of the company's board of directors. "Mr. Morrison, Ms. Chen, I'm so glad you could make it to my mother's party. There are some young people here who've been hoping to speak with you about their experience in Meridian's internship program." My mother's face went white. "Rachel, what are you—" "These are former interns from this past summer," I continued, voice calm and clear. "They have some concerns about the program's administration they'd like to discuss." Emma stepped forward, handed Morrison a folder. "Sir, this contains documentation of the promises made to our internship cohort versus what was actually provided. We were promised stipends that were never paid. We have the original offer letters, email communications, and testimony from 6 participants." Morrison opened the folder, his expression confused. "Patricia, what is this about?" "This is a family event," my mother hissed. This is completely inappropriate." "What's inappropriate," David said, stepping forward, "is promising college students payment and then claiming there was a miscommunication. What's inappropriate is forging revised offer letters and gaslighting us into thinking we'd imagined the original terms." A crowd was forming. Other guests, curious. My sister Jennifer pushed through, looking horrified. "Rachel, what are you doing?" "Telling the truth, Jen." "Ms. Donovan," Margaret Chen said, looking at the documents, "I'm going to need you to explain this. These are serious allegations." "They're lying," my mother said, but her voice was shaking. "These students were unprofessional, entitled—" "There are 6 of them," I said, "all with the same story, all with documentation. And that's just this summer." I pulled out my own folder. I handed it to Morrison. "This is a compilation of anonymous reports, forum posts, and small claims court records dating back 8 years. all describing similar patterns: verbal promises, denied payments, intimidation tactics, all involving your HR department. Morrison's face was thunderous. "Patricia," I said, my voice rising so everyone could hear, "just 6 weeks ago, she did the same thing to her own 12-year-old granddaughter. Promised her $20 a day for garden work. My daughter worked here for 6 weeks, 42 days. She earned $840. My mother told her she'd pay her nothing, that the experience was payment enough." The garden went silent. Lily stepped forward, her voice small but steady. "I worked really hard. I did everything she asked. I thought if I worked hard enough, she'd be proud of me." My mother's face crumpled, but not with remorse, with rage. "You brought a child into this? You're using your daughter to humiliate me?" "No," I said. "You humiliated yourself. You cheated your own granddaughter. And when I found out you'd been doing the same thing to vulnerable employees for years, I decided it needed to stop." "Mr. Morrison," Emma said, her voice stronger now, "we've also filed formal complaints with the Department of Labor. They're investigating Meridian's internship program for wage theft violations. We thought you should know before it becomes public." Morrison looked like he might have a stroke. "You've what?" "We filed yesterday," David confirmed. 6 complaints, all documented, all verified." My father appeared then, pushing through the crowd, his face bright red. "Rachel, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is your mother." "This is a woman who's been stealing from people for years, Dad. The fact that she's my mother doesn't change that. She's family. And she taught her granddaughter that family means nothing. That promises mean nothing. That the powerful can exploit the weak without consequences." I looked at my mother. "You wanted Lily to learn about the real world? Congratulations. She learned that some people will cheat you, but she also learned that you don't have to let them get away with it." My mother lunged at me then. Actually lunged, but Morrison stepped between us. "Patricia, I think you need to leave your own party," he said coldly. "We'll be having a meeting Monday morning, with legal and HR." "Oh, wait. You are HR. Well, we'll figure it out." "You can't do this," my mother sputtered. "I've given 30 years to that company." 30 years of wage theft, apparently," Margaret Chen said. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting. This goes way beyond protocol violations." And then, perfectly timed because I'd reached out to her myself, a woman with a camera appeared. Emma's friend's mother, a local news reporter, microphone in hand. "Patricia Donovan, I'm Karen Wu from Channel 7 News. I'd love to get your statement about these wage theft allegations for our segment on workplace exploitation." My mother was placed on administrative leave the following Monday. By Wednesday, the Department of Labor had opened a formal investigation into Meridian Industries' internship program. By Friday, Channel 7 had run their segment, and it had gone viral online. The response was overwhelming. Former employees came forward. Not just from Meridian, from my mother's previous companies too. A paper trail 20 years long, showing a consistent pattern of promises made and broken, payments denied, power abused. The company settled with the interns for their full stipends plus damages. My mother was forced to resign. Her promotion to VP obviously canceled. She lost her professional reputation, her standing in the community, her carefully constructed image of benevolent authority. But the thing that broke her most, I think, was the family. My father stood by her, of course. Called me vindictive, cruel, said I'd destroyed my own mother over a misunderstanding. My sister Jennifer refused to speak to me for weeks, accused me of airing dirty laundry and ruining the family name. But my brother called me. Said he'd always suspected something was off about how Mom treated people, that he was proud of me for standing up to her. Lily's therapist said she was processing it all remarkably well, that she was learning an important lesson, that injustice doesn't have to be accepted, that sometimes fighting back is necessary, that doing the right thing is often hard, but still right. 2 months later, a check arrived in our mailbox, $840, made out to Lily. With it was a note, typed, not handwritten. Payment for services rendered. No apology. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just the money she'd owed from the start. Lily looked at the check for a long time. "Do you want to cash it?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "I earned it." She did. She bought her art tablet and enrolled in an online drawing course. She saved the rest, just like she'd planned. The interns used their settlement money for tuition, rent, helping their families. Emma told me she'd decided to go to law school, specialize in employment law. David started a student advocacy group on campus. As for my mother, I haven't spoken to her since that day. She sends cards on Lily's birthday, generic messages signed with her full name instead of Grandma. They go straight in the trash. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. If destroying my relationship with my mother was worth $840 and some vindication for a group of college kids, here's what I tell them. It was never about the money. It was about teaching my daughter that her labor has value, that she deserves to be treated fairly, that people in power don't get to exploit others just because they can. My mother taught Lily that promises can be broken, that family can betray you, that the world is fundamentally unfair. She thought she was teaching her to be tough, to accept reality, to not expect too much from life. Instead, she taught her something far more important, that unfairness can be challenged, that betrayal can be exposed, that even when someone has all the power, sometimes the truth is stronger. Lily asked me last week if what we did was revenge or justice. Both, I told her. Sometimes they're the same thing. She thought about that. Then she said, "Good. Because Grandma needed to learn that lesson too." She's 12 years old, and she already understands something my mother spent 70 years refusing to see. That how you treat people matters. That actions have consequences. That nobody is too powerful to be held accountable. My mother wanted to teach my daughter about the real world. Mission accomplished. Just not the lesson she intended. The garden, by the way, the one Lily worked so hard on, is falling apart now. My mother can't maintain it herself, and she's too proud to hire help. The roses are overgrown. The vegetable beds are full of weeds. The perfect landscape she used to show off is slowly returning to chaos. Every time I drive past her house, I smile. Some gardens need to be tended with care and fairness, and some just need to be left to the consequences they've earned.